let's settle in for a quiet story tonight." He still remembered the moment he realized he had set everything in motion. It was the week of his mother's wedding anniversary, and a small gift burned a hole in his backpack. A copy of Anna Karenina. He was 16, and his 35-year-old mother had left their family years before. He loved her deeply, but he resented the life she had built without them. The husband, the daughters, the perfect suburban home. For years he had avoided stepping into that world, staying away from anything that would remind him of her new life and her perfect family. He recalled his childhood, as if looking at an old photograph. Back then, his mother, Sarah, was warm and caring. At night, she would read him bedtime stories, tales of faraway lands and daring heroes, and kiss him goodnight, tucking him in with a gentle smile. His world had felt safe then. The future was an open horizon. But everything changed on his 10th birthday. Instead of balloons and cake, he found her looking nervous in the kitchen. She sighed and said quietly, "Sweetheart, I love you so much, but I've met someone else." "A man named David," she explained. He sat frozen, a spoonful of cake halfway to his mouth, as if those words were a sudden cold wind. A week later, just before dawn, he stood alone on the driveway. A car was waiting, packed with suitcases. Sarah helped load his small backpack into the trunk. His father, John, stood nearby with tears in his eyes, trying to explain that sometimes people make mistakes, but his words sounded hollow. The boy watched that car pull away, taking her, and his childhood, with it. The morning air was cool on his skin as tears welled in his eyes. In that moment, he felt abandoned. Only Aunt Karen, his father's older sister, seemed to know what to say. Later that night, in the quiet of his own home, she wrapped him in a warm hug. "You didn't cause any of this," she whispered, stroking his hair. "Your mom will always love you, even when things are hard." She slipped a note into his hand that read, "You are braver than you know." Aunt Karen had always been like a second mother to him, protective and kind. Over the next days and weeks, she would leave extra scoops of mashed potatoes on his plate at family dinners or tuck scraps of encouragement into his backpack. She often reminded him that his mother's choices were not his fault. His father, John, was devastated at first, but over time he found love again with a woman named Lisa. Soon the boy had a little brother, 7-year-old Ethan with messy brown hair and an infectious laugh. At first, having a new mom and brother felt strange, like waking up from a bad dream. But Ethan insisted on playing catch every evening in the yard, and drew goofy pictures for him. Gradually, Ethan's innocent enthusiasm thawed the boy's heart. Dinner tables, once silent with grief, became filled with laughter. The boy learned to love Ethan like a brother, even though little Ethan didn't fully understand the heartbreak that had come before he arrived. Meanwhile, Sarah and her new family seemed to live in a different world. She married David, and they had 2 little daughters around Ethan's age. From photographs and occasional visits, he saw their cozy house on Elm Street, with a wide yard. In the pictures, his mother looked radiant, hugging her daughters under a bright Christmas tree. Every photo of her at home, elbows deep in a cookie jar with giggling girls around her, twisted a knife in his chest. He was her son, but the son who had been cast aside. In that perfect family, he was an outsider, a guest who never quite belonged. The few times he did visit felt surreal. One Christmas, he walked into the living room just after dinner. There was Sarah in the middle, holding both of her little girls, laughing at something David said. They told him warmly that it was nice to have him home, but their eyes betrayed something else. Attention, a silent message that he was an afterthought. After dinner, Sarah said at the door, "I wish you could stay more often." He gave a small smile, but he could see the truth in her eyes. She was torn between two worlds, just as he was. By the time he was 14, Aunt Karen sometimes prodded, "Why don't you spend more time at your mother's?" He would shrug and look away. Inside, he wanted to scream the truth. "I wish I could, but I just can't." He believed, deep in his heart, that if his mother truly loved him, she wouldn't force him into a life that made him feel so painful. Unspoken inside him was the thought, "She wants us to be close, but I want nothing to do with that man." Yet he never said that out loud. He immersed himself in his own life to cope. He buried himself in school and soccer, in video games and movies with friends. He focused on scores, on homework, on having a normal teenage life. That helped a little. By the time he met Megan in 9th grade, he had become practiced at keeping the pain locked inside. Megan was bright and kind, and eventually he trusted her enough to tell her bits of his story during late-night calls. One chilly winter night, after a particularly rocky Christmas visit with his mother, he had broken down on his couch. Megan had held him as he cried, and afterward said quietly, "You're not a bad kid. You have every right to feel how you feel. Your mom loves you, but she made choices that hurt all of you. You didn't do anything wrong." Her gentle words lodged in his heart, reminding him that maybe he wasn't entirely to blame, even if he felt guilty. When he turned 16, the holidays took an unexpected turn. His dad was called out of town for work the week of Christmas, and even his grandparents were overseas. Suddenly, his usual holiday plan fell through. One late afternoon in December, his mother called him. Her voice sounded bright, with Christmas carols playing, faintly behind her. "How would you like to spend Christmas here?" she asked, trying to sound casual. His throat tightened when he realized the week included the anniversary of her marriage to David. He hesitated, but then answered, "Okay." Maybe he was tired of distance, or maybe he just wanted to feel like a family again. Arriving at Sarah and David's house that evening, he felt a mix of hope and dread. Inside, the lights twinkled and a fire crackled. The house smelled of gingerbread and pine. His half-sisters in matching holiday pajamas danced around the new Christmas tree, squealing about snow. Sarah greeted him with a tight, warm hug and kissed his forehead. "I'm so happy you're here," she said, and he saw genuine joy in her eyes. He managed a small smile, wanting to be happy for her. But as soon as the door closed behind his father's taxi, the familiar knot of anxiety and sadness tightened in his chest again. That night, he went to the bedroom he had as a child, the same room where Sarah used to tuck him in. The posters on the walls were the same as ever. He kept busy with a book or his phone, glancing downstairs every now and then. Every time he caught a glimpse of Sarah cuddling on the couch with David, laughing as the girls begged for stories, a wave of nausea twisted inside him. He felt like a stranger in his mother's home. To cope, he busied himself with homework and texting friends, anything to avoid sitting through those family moments he found unbearable. 2 nights before the anniversary, it happened. He lay on his old bed, trying not to cry, staring at the light from the tree outside. A gentle knock came at the door. He froze. The door cracked open and Sarah peeked in, wrapped in a blanket. Something in her eyes made him hesitate. She hadn't done this since he was small. "Hey," she whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Mind if I tuck you in? Like old times." The golden light of the Christmas tree painted her face as she climbed in beside him. She smelled like lavender and pine. Hesitating only a moment, he cuddled into the blanket beside her. "I missed you," she said softly. Her voice was thick with emotion. "I just really missed you. I wish things could be like before." She reached out to squeeze his hand. He felt a surge of anger and sorrow that cracked through any comfort. He realized in that moment that she was pretending nothing had changed, pretending they could just be like the old days. That realization broke something in him. With as much calm as he could muster, he pulled away and pressed his face into the pillow, pretending to be asleep. His heart hammered. He heard her whisper, "Okay, kiddo," and then the blanket rustled as she quietly left the bed. Later, underneath the covers, he cried into his pillow, both furious and heartbroken that she had tried to act as if the past 10 years hadn't happened. Sunday finally arrived, the anniversary itself. The house buzzed with guests, Sarah's friends, his dad's old college buddies, even his grandparents. The Christmas lights still shimmered on the tree, and carols played softly in the background. He sat at the large dinner table, pretending to pass rolls as people told jokes and laughed. Sarah was beaming, happy to have him there. She kept glancing at him with proud eyes as he laughed at her friends' silly jokes. In that moment, he realized something crucial. She truly did want him close. He could see the pride and love in her eyes as she watched him. But he also knew he could never go back to being the forgiving little boy he once was. Seeing her so happy, sharing that blanket with David, surrounded by the girls, only reminded him how deeply he had been hurt. The picture of the perfect family before him made his own pain feel even sharper. He quietly told himself that he needed to make her understand, to show her how wrong and painful this all felt to him, even if it hurt her. After dessert, he excused himself and headed to the living room. Everyone else went downstairs to watch a movie, leaving him alone by the glowing tree. He took the wrapped gift he had prepared the night before and placed it on the coffee table. With trembling hands, he unwrapped it. Inside was an old, worn copy of Anna Karenina, the favorite novel his mother had loved in college. He had taped a small note inside the cover that read, "I love you, Mom." He stared at the title, Anna Karenina. In Tolstoy's novel, the heroine leaves her husband and child for an affair. He let that thought sink in, tears pooling. He remembered all the times his mother had left him, for her dates, for late nights out with friends, for Christmas dinners, times when her little boy felt invisible. The irony was sharp and unbearable. With a deep breath, he walked back into the dining room. Dinner guests were gathered for a gift exchange. His heart pounded as the family passed around presents. When it was their turn, he stood and stepped forward. Every eye turned to him. With shaking hands, he placed the wrapped book in front of Sarah. "Happy anniversary, Mom," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Sarah looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. Slowly, she unwrapped the paper. As her gaze fell on the cover of Anna Karenina, her eyes widened. For a moment, she was stunned into silence. Then she simply whispered, "Oh," and drew him into a quick, stiff hug. In that hug, he felt her heartbeat racing against his. When she pulled back, she forced a small smile. "Thank you, sweetheart," she said, her voice catching. She looked at the book again with tears welling in her eyes. Around them, Everyone else resumed talking and laughing as if nothing had happened, though he could barely hear their voices. He watched Sarah's face. He could see confusion, hurt, and something like understanding flicker in her eyes. Every second felt like a lifetime. Finally, when he saw tears on her cheeks, he stepped back. He wondered if maybe he had gone too far. Maybe he had been cruel, but he told himself also that perhaps this was what she needed, a way to finally feel some of his pain, to understand that her choices had consequences for him. Later that night, after most of the guests had left, the house was quiet. He curled up on the couch, unable to sleep. He opened Anna Karenina on his lap and stared at the blank page. He was thinking about his mother. That's when he heard it, a soft, muffled sob from upstairs. His breath caught. He crept to the staircase and peered into the darkness. Through the crack of the bedroom door, he saw her. Sarah was kneeling beside the bed, her shoulders shaking as she cried into her hands. David sat behind her, murmuring soothing words. The sight of his mother like this, vulnerable and heartbroken, made his own chest tighten. He felt his knees grow weak. One of his little sisters stepped out of the bathroom and asked, voice trembling, "Mommy, are you okay?" Hearing the innocence in her voice and seeing his mother cry broke him. He realized the gift had worked. He had made his mother feel pain. A crushing guilt settled in his stomach. Part of him felt a sick relief. He had wanted her to understand his hurt, but another part was filled with regret. He quietly slipped back downstairs and sat alone under the Christmas tree lights, tears streaming. That night he cried until he fell asleep, wondering if he had crossed a line he could never uncross. The next morning, he barely slept. He sat at the kitchen table, tired and anxious, as Sarah came in. Her eyes were puffy and red. She gave him a quick kiss on the head and offered him a plate of cinnamon rolls, forcing a smile. The silence between them was heavy. David was already at the table, angry. He slammed down his fork and glared. "What the hell were you thinking?" David shouted, voice trembling with rage. "Do you have any idea how cruel that was? You gave your mother a book about cheating." Each word from David hit him like a punch. He stared at his plate, feeling as if everyone had suddenly turned invisible. Sarah backed away, tears brimming in her eyes. Inside him, guilt and shame battled with lingering hurt. He whispered, I just wanted her to understand." His voice was small and shaking. David scoffed, "Understand? You're heartless," and stormed out of the house, slamming the front door. He sat frozen, barely breathing. Sarah quietly gathered her things and left for work as if the moment were too painful. He was left alone at the table, the silence crushing. He finally mumbled, almost to himself, "I'm sorry," his voice trembling. But he wasn't sure if he was saying it to her or to himself. As the afternoon shadows grew long, he questioned everything he had done. The next few days passed in tense silence. Neither Sarah nor David spoke to him. The house felt empty and fragile. At night, he lay awake asking himself, "Am I really that bad for what I did?" The guilt gnawed at him. He would jot thoughts in his mind like scribbling a hidden journal. "I made my mother cry. I feel terrible, but I was hurting too." Those nights were the longest he could remember. During this time, Megan was worried. He reached out to her and she listened through text messages and a late-night call. "You don't have to stay there if it hurts you," she said gently. "Stay with me if you want. My parents would be happy to have you over too." Her kind voice was a lifeline. "You're not alone," she reminded him. "You did what you felt you had to do." Her compassion soothed some of the turmoil in his chest. The following day, he called his dad, who was still away on business. Through tears, he told him what had happened. His father's voice was calm and comforting. "You don't have to spend time there if you don't want to," he said. "If you want to come home, I'll make it happen. Whatever you need." The boy blinked back tears of relief. His dad even offered to send Aunt Karen to pick him up. Knowing he had that support gave him strength. That night, he made up his mind. He needed to try to talk with his mom. He even practiced the words, scribbling his apology letter in his mind like a script. The next afternoon, he found her waiting by the car to drive him home. He climbed into the passenger seat, clutching the envelope he had written. But as soon as Sarah started driving, all the carefully chosen words crumbled on his tongue. The Christmas lights from their home still glowed through the rear window as Sarah cleared her throat. She was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she looked at him with tears in her eyes. I was afraid you thought I was cold or didn't care," she whispered. Her voice trembled. I missed you. Every single day. I know I hurt you when I left. I see that now." She took a shaky breath. "Maybe you hate me. I know I hurt you. You might even hate me for what I did, and I wouldn't blame you." He felt those words hit him. Hatred. It was impossible. His own eyes filled. He reached over and took her hand. "Mom," he choked out, I don't hate you. I love you so much." His voice cracked, and he buried his face in his hands, crying hard, his body shaking with sobs. "I thought I'd lost you forever. I was terrified." She shifted the car into park and turned to him, wrapping her arms around him. "Oh, baby," she whispered. He felt her fingers gently stroking his hair. She squeezed him tightly. In that moment he understood. She truly cared more than he had realized. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes, still catching his breath. "I want you to be my mom," he managed through tears. "I do. But I hate that. That man hurt our family. I'm sorry I gave you that book. I just didn't know what else to do." He sniffled, wiping his face. "I'm sorry I yelled and everything." She wiped her own eyes. "You don't have to apologize to me, sweetheart," she said softly. "I am so sorry. I shouldn't have made you feel like you weren't there. I was so angry at David, but I should have put you first." Her voice strengthened. "I promise you this. I will never let him come between us again. We'll get through this, you and me." She squeezed his hand. "We'll even go to counseling if you want. Just you and me. You don't have to be afraid of losing me." They sat there in the car, words flowing between them, apologies and tears. He apologized for pretending to be asleep and shutting her out. She apologized for leaving and not being there for him. By the time they drove home, they were both exhausted and quiet, but something heavy had lifted. Under the soft glow of the passing lights, they had begun to heal. When he told his father and Aunt Karen everything later, they were both full of pride and relief. His dad hugged him tightly and said he was proud of him. "You don't ever have to be forced to stay anywhere you're not comfortable," he promised. Aunt Karen beamed at him and said, "You stood up for yourself, and that took courage." For the first time in a long time, he felt okay. True to their word, things started to change. Sarah kept her promise. A few days later, she took him out for lunch, just the two of them at a small diner. They laughed over milkshakes and talked about new books they liked and movies they wanted to see. She even helped him pick out a new backpack as a surprise. When he texted about school, she replied quickly, sometimes with a joke or a silly meme. She began taking him to his soccer games to cheer him on. Most importantly, she never rushed him back into David's world after he arrived. He also found new closeness with Aunt Karen and Ethan. One afternoon, he sat with Aunt Karen on the couch, Ethan curled up in his lap making airplane noises during a cartoon. When he told Aunt Karen, "Mom said she'll go to therapy with me, just the two of us," tears came to her eyes. "That's wonderful," she said, leaning over to kiss his forehead. Ethan beamed and hugged him tightly, and for the first time he felt a warm laughter bubble up through all the drama. Looking back, he knew that giving that book had been painful, but it had forced the truth into the open. It wasn't about punishing Sarah. It was a cry for understanding. Deep down, he had never wanted to hurt her. He was terrified of losing the only mother he had. All he ever really wanted was her love and honesty. Now, as the holidays rolled around again, everything felt different. He still loved it when Sarah read him chapters from a new novel, still rolled his eyes at Aunt Karen's jokes, and still helped Ethan build Lego spaceships. Sometimes, on a Saturday morning, Sarah would call him down to cook pancakes together. Just them, no one else around. But he also felt something new: respect. If he needed a break during a big family gathering, both his parents would check in and say it was okay. His mother no longer disappeared when he arrived. She made sure to spend one-on-one time with him, no distractions. One evening, he sat by the soft Christmas lights with a cup of hot cocoa, gazing at Sarah smiling beside him on the couch. In the flickering glow, he realized how far they had come. The boy who once felt small and broken had grown, and their family had grown. Honesty, however painful, had brought them back together. He squeezed his mom's hand and smiled. "I love you," he whispered. She smiled back and said, "I love you too, sweetheart, no matter what." In that moment, he knew that having the courage to tell the truth, even when it hurt, had been the bravest gift he could give to their family. And it had brought them all home at last.